Good morning, students. Welcome to Competition Guru. I hope you are doing very well. So, please connect immediately and please like, comment, and share the live as soon as possible so that I can start your class. Okay, and please write me in comment section if I am audible. अगर सब कुछ सही है तो प्लीज कमेंट सेक्शन में लिख दीजिए. Okay, good morning, Arpana. How are you? Okay, so yesterday we have done with literary schools and movements. We were on the Neoclassical or Augustan school of poetry. And I have asked you one question. You have to tell me that whether John Keats belongs to the graveyard school of poetry or not. तो आपने वो क्वेश्चन देखा? अगर रिवाइज किया है तो प्लीज लेट मी नो. John Keats was also associated with graveyard school of poetry or not? So, for your information, I just want to add that John Keats also associated with the graveyard school of poetry. Okay, because in his poems you can see the themes of graveyard school of poetry. For example, you can see the theme of grief, you can see the theme of grapes, coffins. Okay, so these all symbols are dealt with themes of John Keats. So John Keats, yes. Arpana, you are right. He was also graveyard poet. So remember it always. So we were talking about neoclassical age. As you can see, the literature of this school is basically satirical and didactic. So you have to remind this point that if we are talking about neoclassical literature and neoclassical school, the literature of this school is often satirical or didactic. You should know that satire was very famous genre of this school. Okay? G. Yes. So the satires may be social, political, or even personal. The personal satires are highly pungent and even offensive. Pope's Dunciad, The Rape of the Lock, Dryden's McFlecknoe are typical satirical poems of this school. So these two poets are very important, Alexander Pope and John Dryden. John Dryden's McFlecknoe are typical satirical poems of this school. And please write me in comment section that John Dryden was poet laureate or not. बताइए जल्दी से. John Dryden was poet laureate or not? Hanji Arpana, what according to you? John Dryden was poet laureate or not? Okay, as you can see that after Augustan age there will be which age after Augustan age you will see which age? Yes, he was poet. Yes, Azra, good morning. हाँ जी बिल्कुल सही है. Sahil, he was poet laureate. So, as such, imaginative flight and emotional fervor was replaced by cold reasoning and mechanical craftsmanship. So, you have to remember this point that in neoclassical school and before neoclassical school there was no strict rules and regulation, but when they wrote, they just wrote about, they imitate neoclassical ideas, sorry, they imitated classical ideas of Roman and Greek writers. So they had very strong rules and regulations of writing. These poets had a gift of pregnant and memorable phrases and philosophical. They have also wrote their poetry in poetic diction. So they have very strong poetic diction like Roman and Greek writers. He became G. Yes, he was first official poet. So, according to terms, these poets, the language of everyday life is language fit for poetry. Their concept was that the further the language of poetry is removed from the language of real life. According to them, the common language is not language of poetry. They think that there should be special language for poetry. That's why they said that everyday life is not the language fit for poetry. But ड्यूरिंग रोमांटिक एज में क्या हुआ था, रोमांटिक एज के जितने भी राइटर्स थे दे थॉट दैट कॉमन लैंग्वेज शुड बी एप्रोप्रिएट फॉर पोइट्री. Okay, so there is a strong reaction of Augustan age in romantic age. Their concept was that the farther the language of poetry is removed from the language of real life, the better is. Dr. Johnson defined poetic diction, thus, a system of words at once refined from the grossness of domestic use and free from the harshness of term appropriate to particular arts. So, please also remember this definition by Dr. Samuel Johnson. The language of poetry tended to be stilled and standardized. Further, this school was written exclusively in the heroic couplet. Okay, so next we have romantic movement. As I have already told you that romantic movement was strong reaction against neoclassical movement. It was strong reaction against neoclassical movement. Neoclassical movement. In neoclassical movement you can see many rules and regulation, and they imitated classical writers. But romantic writers just want independence, they want freedom, liberty, equality. Okay, so they don't want any type of rules and regulation. Romantic movement has been variously defined by various critics and scholars. According to Walter Pater, Romanticism is the addition of curiosity to the desire of beauty. It is strangeness added to beauty. In the words of Walter Hugo, Romanticism is liberation in literature, impatient of formulas, but generous and tolerant in any other way. Okay? William J. Long says romantic movement was marked and always marked by a strong reaction and protest against the bondage of rule and custom. So it was a strong reaction against neoclassicism. As neoclassical poets, they just follow strongest rules and regulation. Romantics just they were opposite to the rules and regulation by neoclassical poets. So they just want liberty, equality, freedom, independence in writing and literature. Okay, so can you tell me how many generations are there of romantic poets? How many generations are there of romantic poets? Write in comment section please. हाँ जी बताइए. How many generations are known in romanticism or romantic age? Two. Very good. First one is old generation, in which we have William Wordsworth, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and Robert Southey. These three poets were also known as lake poets. Okay. In new generation we have, बताइए जल्दी. ओल्ड जनरेशन मैंने आपको बता दी है. न्यू जनरेशन बताओ, पता होगी आपको. ओल्ड जनरेशन में विलियम वर्ड्सवर्थ है, कॉलरिज है एंड रॉबर्ट साउदी है. तो न्यू जनरेशन में कौन कौन आएंगे? लॉर्ड बायरन, पीबी शेले एंड जॉन कीट्स. ओके, सो these are two generations of romantic poets, new generation and old generation. Okay, as you should know that what is the starting point of romantic age. 1798, when lyrical ballads were published. Who wrote lyrical ballads? William Wordsworth and S.T. Coleridge. It was joint work by William Wordsworth and S.T. Coleridge. जी बिल्कुल सही है आपका. Very good. Okay, why they were known as, why first generation was known as lake poets? बताइए. What is meaning of lake? Why they were known as lake poets and they are known as lake poets? I am just waiting for your answer. Reply immediately. Why Wordsworth, S.T. Coleridge, and Robert Southey, they are known as lake poets? Yes, very good. Very good, Arpana and Azra, because live they lived in Lake District. ठीक है? So they were known as lake poets. Lake is a district. ठीक है? So they lived in this district, that's why they were known as lake poet. And you have so many questions based on lake poets concept, so you should know that who were lake poets, why they were known as lake poets. Okay, the romantic movement is popularly known by two terms. Just focus on these two terms: the romantic revival and the romantic revolts. Okay, the romantic revival and the romantic revolts. As the romantic revival, it seeks to revive the poetic ideals of Elizabethan age. As there can be question that romantic revivals or romantic poets, their writings were based on which age? So you must have to remember they were based on the ideas of Elizabethan age. Okay, so they were basically focused on Elizabethan writings. As you can see that neoclassical were focused, they were reviving classical writers, Greek writers and Roman writers. But on the other hand, romantic revivals, romantic poets, they revived the poetic ideals of Elizabethan age. Love and beauty, imagination, romance, beauty of nature were the ideals of Elizabethan poetry. Same in romantic literature. So history repeats itself. हिस्ट्री बार बार रिपीट होती है. जो चीजें आपने एलिजाबेथन टाइम पीरियड में देखी वही आपको रोमांटिक टाइम पीरियड में देखने को मिलेंगी, बिकॉज दे हैव द सेम थीम्स. ओके, all these ideals are prominently found in the poetry of Wordsworth, Coleridge, Shelley, Keats, Byron, and romantic poets. Romantic movement is also called romantic revolt. Now you got to know about the idea why it is known as romantic revival, because they gave rebirth to Elizabethan ideals. So they revived Elizabethan ideas, that's why it is known as romantic revival. Why romantic movement is also called romantic revolt? Because it revolted against the rigorous discipline, urbanity, intellectualism, and strict rules and regulations, satirical spirit of neoclassical poetry. So this point is also clear to you that romantic revival किस लिए बोला जाता है और रोमांटिक रिवोल्ट क्यों बोला जाता है. रोमांटिक रिवोल्ट इसलिए बोला जाता है बिकॉज इट इज अ स्ट्रॉन्ग रिएक्शन, इट वाज अ प्रोटेस्ट, इट वाज अ रिवोल्ट अगेंस्ट रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशंस ऑफ neoclassical poetry. So you must have to remember these 2 points. Okay, so if you have a question that why romantic age is known as romantic revolt, so you have to know this point. अगर क्वेश्चन ये आ गया क्यों रोमांटिक एज को रोमांटिक रिवाइवल माना जाता है, तो आपको याद रखना है कि वो एलिजाबेथन एज को रिवाइव कर रहे थे. ठीक है, द जस्ट इमिटेटिंग एलिजाबेथन आइडियल्स. ओके, द न्यूक्लासिकल पोइट्री वाज मैकेनिकल एंड आर्टिफिशियल थी, बट रोमांटिक पोइट्री वाज रियल. ओके, and not in the heart. It was from the head, not from the heart, you can say. The romantic poetry revolt against it was deeply marked with imaginative flight and emotional fervor. Emotionalism is remarkable feature. So you have to highlight this point, that emotionalism was greatest feature of romantic poetry or romantic age. Clear? Okay, please mention if it is clear to you what is romantic revolt and romantic revival, Arpana. If all clear, please mention in comment section. ओके, सो नेक्स्ट थिंग देखिए, इसके बाद हमें जो बातें याद रखनी है, Coleridge and Keats recreated for us the medieval world, Middle Ages, and turning it into make-believe world on the principle of willing suspension of disbelief. These are the marked characteristic of romantic school of poetry. So this is very important feature and important term given by who coined the term suspension of disbelief. Write immediately in comment section, please. Who coined the term willing suspension of disbelief? Immediately write in comment section. Very easy. Who coined the term suspension of disbelief? जल्दी से बताइए. Yes, St. Coleridge, Samuel Taylor Coleridge coined the term willing suspension of disbelief. Now you should know what is meaning of willing suspension of disbelief. As you all are, we all are living in real life. Okay, we are just scrolling reels on Instagram, on YouTube. This is our system. This is our life. So real life is best example of willing suspension of disbelief. Am I right? So it means allowing of the artist, actor, or poet a possibility to communicate the message intended in a given work in a less reality. Okay, in easy way, if I want to tell you what is meaning of willing suspension of disbelief, you can remember it like that it is just like a real life. How? हाँ जी, अजरा बताइए क्यों रियल लाइफ की एग्जांपल क्यों दी है मैंने. It refers the idea that reader or audience temporarily set aside their reality, they set aside their skepticism and accept the fantastic elements that are not true, that are not real. For example, we just watch any movie, just like supernatural elements were there in movies, we just enjoying it, but we know that it is not truth. So this is called willing suspension of disbelief, but we are just enjoying it for sakeness of our enjoyment, for sake of our enjoyment, we just going through it. Okay, we just watch it, we watch the full movie. This is called willing suspension of disbelief, despite we know that this is not truth. Nobody can fly, nobody can you can say nobody can very run very fastly just like that was given in your films or movies. For example, if you see Cinderella. So as the setting is not reality, it is not in real world Cinderella's setting, but we enjoyed it. So this is also called willing suspension of disbelief. Okay. G. We willingly believe something which is not real. Yes, example, very good example. For example, Shakespeare's Tempest, audience accept the existence of Ariel. As you know, who was Ariel? In Tempest, Ariel was airy, you can say air fairy. So we know that there are no fairies exist, but we just enjoying it for the sake of our enjoyment. We know that it is not real, so this is the perfect example of willing suspension of disbelief. Now next is the Oxford movement. Oxford movement, as the name suggests, it was basically a religious movement. It was a religious movement. It was an outcome of long controversy and ideological conflicts among different Christian sects and churches. Since the battleground of these controversy was Oxford. So you must know about the battleground. The battleground of these controversy was Oxford. So it was called Oxford movement. Okay, it was first point, it was religious movement. Second point, it was outcome of long controversy and ideological conflicts among different Christian sects. Okay, as you know, Christianity is further divided into different sects, so it was just clash between that sect, those sects. Okay, and the battleground of these controversy was Oxford. That's why this movement is also known as the Oxford movement. All these controversy were carried on through tracts and pamphlets. Pamphlets were also published during this movement, and this movement was also called the Tractarian movement. So please mention the name in your notes. Tractarian movement. It was in the course of its development, it took a literary turn too. So there was so much literature produced with the help of this movement. This happened because some of the leaders were the poets and prose writers. Leaders of Oxford movement were poets as well as they were prose writers. These literary men supported the cause of English church. As you know, Reformation, Anglican Church means English Church, and Roman Catholic Church. Similarly, literary men literary men supported the cause of English Church and the prayer book through their writings. They just continuously support the English Church. In course of time, a whole country, so Samson say, viewed from afar the Oxford movement appeared to be a theological dispute among the local clergy in a university city. Okay, so the aim of the movement was to rehabilitate the dignity of the church, to defend the church against the interference of the state and fight against liberalism. Now the main point is that every movement was a reaction. Every movement want freedom, every movement want liberalism. So this movement also seek liberalism, to defend religion against the onslaught of scientific discoveries, and to preserve faith against rationalism. So main point is faith versus rationalism. Okay, faith versus science, religion versus technology. So this was the main, you can say these were the main uh, themes of this movement. Okay, the origin of Oxford movement can trace to opposition of scientific discovery against age old religious beliefs and faith. The opposition was specially directed against biblical concept regarding the creation of universe and living creature including human beings. The traditional beliefs and the theories about the creation of living species and vegetation world could not be proved by scientific experiments. So here we the finest example was Darwin's Origin of Species, which shook the very foundation of religion. Okay, when it was said that we are just a child of Adam and Eve, कि हम जो एडम एंड ईव का बच्चा बच्चे से हम सारे जो हैं पैदा हुए हैं, ठीक है, वी आर चिल्ड्रन ऑफ एडम एंड ईव अकॉर्डिंग टू बाइबल. बट व्हेन चार्ल्स डार्विन authored a book Origin of Species, so it just shook the you can say it shook the religious controversies, as well as it gave birth to many type of clashes and controversies. Okay, so you can say it shook the very foundations of religion. But religion had to be saved because man cannot live without faith in some higher power. So Oxford movement is all about religion. They just advocate freedom, they want liberty, and there was also clash between church and faith, science, you can say. So we have some important features here. Literary figures associated with it were two brothers, Richard Hurrell Froude and James Anthony Froude, Edward Percy, Isaac William, Richard William Church, and few more. So these are important men. And you can say poets, prose writers, most important of them was John Henry Newman. Originator of movement was John Keble. So please mention their name in your notes so that you must remember the names and prominent figures of Oxford movement. जी बिल्कुल सही है. वेरी गुड अर्पणा. So next movement is Pre-Raphaelite school of poetry. So it was a very good movement, you can say, in art. Three English painters named Dante Gabriel Rossetti, John Everett Milias, William Holman Hunt founded a society in 1848 and called it Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. They gave this name to their society because they drew their inspiration from Italian painters before Raphael. Before Raphael means pre-Raphael. So this is called Pre-Raphaelite poetry. Basically, it focused on the inspiration from Italian painters. In the painters before Raphael, they found a sweetness, depth, and sincerity of devotional feeling, self forgetfulness, and humble adherence to truth, which were absent from the sophisticated and Raphael of his successors. So, these are some themes of pre Raphaelite poetry. Basically, it was inspired from painter pre before Raphael. ठीक है, they found a sweetness. These are themes of the poetries. Next movement we have aesthetic movement. Aesthetic, बिल्कुल अजरा. Aesthetic movement was a European phenomenon started during the last phase of 19th century. Its roots lay in the German theory proposed by Immanuel Kant. Sorry, its central thought is the great art has no ulterior purpose, no moral values to teach, no message to give to human life. It is complete in itself, term of aesthetic beauty. It is an end in itself. It upholds the doctrine for art for life's sake, as against the concept of art of life's sake. The French writers developed the doctrine that art is supreme in itself, it is self sufficient, and it has no aim beyond its own perfection. So this was all about aesthetic movement. I will give you some important and brief explanation of aesthetic movement. Just write this point only, then I will tell you. So, aesthetic movement in literature was a late 19th century artistic movement that focused the idea for art's sake. So, here this point is not valid. Art for art's sake. Here is a mistake of word. Art for art's sake. Their motto was art for art's sake. It focused on beauty, pleasure, and sensory experience of art rather than on moral, social, and political message. So they just want that our art is self sufficient, it has no aim beyond its own perfection. There is no moral values, there is no political values, there is no social value. They just focused on beauty of art and experience of art only. That's why it is self sufficient. So it upholds the doctrine for art's sake, as against the concept of art for life's sake. So it was opposite of art for life's sake. Okay. तो ये कुछ मूवमेंट्स थी जो हमने करनी थी. इसके बाद हम जो है वो 5 क्वेश्चंस करेंगे. देन जो हम लाइव है यहीं पे खत्म कर देंगे. फिर कल यस बिल्कुल सही है. हाँ जी अजरा, वहाँ पे गलती थी बच्चे, मिस्टेक थी. आई हैव क्लियर्ड इट ऑलरेडी. So just look at the question. Please tell me the answer of it. First question is, the exodus of Greek scholars and artists from their country started after the fall of Constantinople in the hands of Turks, the defeat of Greeks in War of Troy, the death of Alexander the Great, the death of Homer. जल्दी से आंसर दीजिए. वेरी गुड. सो एक्सोडस का मतलब क्या होता है? जब बहुत सारे लोग इकट्ठे विड्रॉ करते हैं, इकट्ठे कोई कंट्री कोई जगह को छोड़ के जाते हैं, तो उसको हम बोलते हैं एक्सोडस. तो ग्रीक स्कॉलर्स ने कैसे अपनी कंट्री को, ग्रीस को छोड़ा और अपनी कंट्री से वो चले गए थे, किसके बाद गए थे? तो फर्स्ट आंसर, फर्स्ट ऑप्शन इज करेक्ट. द फॉल ऑफ कॉन्स्टेंटिनोपल एट द हैंड्स ऑफ द तुर्क्स. ओके. सेकंड क्वेश्चन बिल्कुल सही है जी. सेकंड क्वेश्चन, the exodus of Greek scholars and artists from their country and their settlement in Rome is technically called Reformation, Revival, Renaissance, Resurrection. हाँ जी बताइए. बहुत इजी है. When they moved to Rome, they found the perfect environment for culture and literature. So it was also called Renaissance. Renaissance started from Rome. So C option is correct here. जी बिल्कुल अजरा सही है, C option. हाँ जी. नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन, Constantinople fell at the hands of Turks in 1353, 1453, 1553, 1253. जल्दी से बताइए आंसर. Constantinople fell at the hands of Turks. जल्दी 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 बताओ. अर्पणा. B. Yes, 1453, 15th century. In 1453, Constantinople fell at the hands of Turks. Renaissance reached England through Rome, Germany, Italy, France. बहुत बार ये क्वेश्चन आ चुका है, so you must know the answer of it. Renaissance reached England through जी, ज़िल पिल जो आपने जो आंसर दिया है बिल्कुल सही है। नेक्स्ट का बताइए, रेनेसां किसके बाद, किसके थ्रू जो है इंग्लैंड में पहुंचा? सी फ्रांस, अज़रा ध्यान से देखो, रोम, जर्मनी, इटली, फ्रांस। So Italy is right option here. C option is right, Azra. Please check your answer again. C option is right here. Renaissance best flourished in England in Chaucer's age, Restoration age, Elizabethan's age, and Augustan age. Very easy question, as you know which age was best for Renaissance. And Renaissance was very much flourished in England during that age. The age name was Elizabethan age, as you know that Elizabethan age is also known as Renaissance. Okay, so this is also golden age. सो दिस ऑप्शन इज करेक्ट हियर. सो दिस इज इनफ फॉर टुडे. कल जो है हमारे जो बाकी के एमसीक्यूज हैं बेस्ड ऑन दीज लिटरेरी मूवमेंट्स, वी विल कवर ऑल द एमसीक्यूज. सो प्लीज बी विद मी एट 11:15. if you want to join any type of course online or offline, you can contact with us, and you can have online coaching as well as offline coaching, and live classes will also given to you. Thank you so very much. Meet you tomorrow at the very same time. Thank you. Have a nice day.